What is going on, Guardians? This is DREADFULxSHOT, and today we're talking about the Titan. But let me ask you a question first. Are you tired of this happening to you? No, don't. Oh, come on! Or this? With all seriousness, there is a downside to every class. So if you're here because this is your first time being a Titan, or you're thinking about being a Titan, or maybe you're a glass cannon support warlock who's going, maybe I can increase my intellect by seeing what they're doing over there. Or maybe you're a dodgy boy hunter who just is trying to get a little bit of edge by sneaking a peek in the playbook. Or maybe you're a veteran Titan and you're looking to maybe pick up a move or two that maybe you haven't thought of. Well, that's what we're going over. First off, let's talk about mobility. Most classes have something a little extra to their mobility. And I'm not talking about the stat. The stat, by the way, only affects your initial jump and strafe. It does not affect your run. As a matter of fact, you can only stack 2 sprint buffs on your character at one time. So, if you're trying to increase your speed, as a Titan, we don't have a whole lot of sprint buffs, so use things like a lightweight weapon. I'm currently using the SHAREf shotgun, which is a lightweight frame that increases your movement speed. So make sure you're taking advantage of things like that as much as you can. So let's get into some of the movement things the Titans have. We'll start off with our jumps. Number 1 is high lift. We do not use high lift unless we're in a jumping puzzle in which we cannot reach where we're trying to go. Like, we only need like another foot or two. That is the only time you'll use high lift. Honestly, it's one of the worst jumps that Titans have at their disposal. Strafe lift is a PvP staple. You will often use this to cover a lot of ground. You may still use this in PvE or jump puzzles if you're trying to get along, but basically it keeps your forward momentum without really touching ground, which is nice to just hover and get some good forward movement. And generally speaking, you won't use it as a double tap. It's like warlocks where you'll tap and then wait a moment, tap again. It's not something that you generally keep going in. Next, we will talk about the catapult lift. This is your bread and butter of PvE. If you're doing jump puzzles or just anything in general, catapult lift is definitely the best jump that Titans have to their ability. It's almost like having triple jump. You will always just kind of have this around. If you're a hunter, this is triple jump. Just treat it like that. Double tap every time you want to jump instead of single tap, and you'll be good to go. So that's the 3 jumps that we have available. Next, we'll get into our alternative movement options, which for Titan is the shoulder charge, which is just simply run until you see these nice little swoosh motions up in your top right, top left, all the corners. It will say you are ready to punch. That is your bread and butter. If this is your first time playing Titan, that's what you care about, seeing those whooshes and ready to punch. There are alternative advanced movement options you can use to your advantage, such as if you wanted to see what was going on inside this door, you can just go against the wall and you get a nice little peek there without letting them know that you're peeking. Most people will use a sword or they will pop their rift. Those are the things that they use to tell people, but you can simply just run against your wall here and punch. You may also use slide punch to duck corners and come through. One of the best things that you can use is if you know someone is inside this corridor and they're within 15 feet-ish, which is about here, you can get a shoulder charge. Let's say they're right here. You saw them peek through. One of your nice advanced thing is working on a slide melee. So if you saw them, you can go slide in and punch. Guaranteed kill. If they're further in, you're gonna have to slide in the door, and that's a little more difficult, but a little more likely because those situations are where you would see, oh, I spotted him there, so now I wanna jump down, come across, and we're gonna slide in the door and then punch. So remember, you've gotta be pretty close. One thing you need to watch out for when doing shoulder charges, especially if you're using top tree striker Titan, If you use your shoulder charge and are killed before your feet touch back onto the ground, right there where your gun's re-readied, you lose your shoulder charge. It doesn't matter if you have our Insurmountable skull fort or not, it's gone. So that's one thing to watch out for. So now we'll go into sword flying. In PvE environments, you may see things where you're like, man, I wish I could get to that. Well, don't worry. As a Titan, there is literally nothing you can't get to with lion rampants, any sword, and catapult lift. With just these three pieces, there's nothing you can't get. So let's go grab some heavy real fast and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about.
Go, make them cry.
So we got 12 ammo. Titans have this unique thing that if you just tap, swipe, tap, swipe, tap, swipe, tap, swipe, there, as long as you have sword ammo, there is nothing you can't fly to. You may lose a little bit of altitude, but don't worry, catapult lift will bring you back in. Do this all day. So, that is it for movement options. Now let's talk about a couple of exotics that will make your day. As a Titan, you have some very, very unique things that go to specifically you. You will hear everyone complain about this exotic. It's called Antaeus Ward. This one will give you the option that anytime you're doing a slide, it puts up a barricade around you. And as of the moment of recording this, this gives you 100% immunity to chip damage. There are plenty of videos out there that if you do a slide into a super, it shoots that super back or takes control of that super if it's a projectile. Now this doesn't work on things like Storm Trance, but it does protect you for a moment, which can be very helpful to do a slide into it, shotgun blast, and punch, which takes out most people from their super. Next, we have another staple into being a Titan. Let's switch off these boots here. An Insurmountable skull fort. If this is your first time being a Titan, try this out. This will make you feel like a god amongst mere mortals. And we'll show you a little bit of gameplay after we go through this build and explain what you can do with this. But kills with arc melee trigger health regeneration and restore your melee energy. What this means is if you're running, you punch someone, you get a kill, guess what? You got all your energy back. That means you can keep running and punching again. In a PvE environment, this is insane. This is where you can build up your super very, very quickly. In PvP environment, it's nasty, it's toxic, but it's oh so fun. But I can warn you right now, radar awareness is going to be key. The first 3 minutes of every match, I'll even say a minute or two, will be reading on whether this is going to be a good option or not. If you're getting shut down left and right, put the helmet away, go play with your gun. If they're not shutting you down or they're only aware when you're in front of them because their radar awareness is terrible, it's time to go hog wild. But before I go too much further into that, let me go into a build that you might use with this. So as always, if you're not using Monte Carlo with your build and it's a melee build, shame on you. This is the best weapon as a Titan or any other melee build to have in your slot. Just doing damage reduces your melee ability. And sometimes when you get a kill, it gives you a chunk. Sometimes just killing one person can give you your melee ability back. Why not have this gun, especially right now as the filming of this, a 600 round per minute auto rifle is the meta. And unlike the Suros regime, you don't have to wind it up to get that damage going. It's right off the bat. So let's get into what we're using. Top Tree Striker or Code of the Earthshaker. I always use pulse grenades, but you can definitely use a flashbang or lightning grenade as you get better. In PvP, use Towering Barricade to block off corridors, and use a Rally Barricade when you're using it in PvE. So now that we've talked about that, we've shown you the exotics that we're using, let's go ahead and get into the gameplay.
lead has grown, but don't let up. They won't. Shax must envy your strength.
Now that you've seen what the Arc Striker can do, let's talk about the super options. Number one, we're using the Earth Shaker. This is a big AoE. Often in PvP, you'll see people just using the shoulder charge, going around tapping people, but as the code of the Earth Shaker, you don't get a lot of it. Your job is to shut down groups. See a group and bring it in. You see another group, bring it in. You see another group, bring them in. You'll notice that your super energy goes just as long as it does the other way, but sometimes I even venture to say it lasts longer. But do not worry, you can still run around and waste it, I guess. Sometimes it takes a little bit to find the people you're looking for, but if that's the case, make sure you're using shoulder charge to close the gap. So, now that we've talked about the Earth Shaker and its opportunities is to shut down either doorways by placing a long pulse grenade spot there, which not on the initial, only at the end. Or maybe it's only at the end. The last one, you hear that? It's still going. It's hard to see while your super is going, but it's leaving a nice little pulse-like grenade there. Yeah, that one sounded a lot better. See, it's still going. So you can use it to shut down a doorway that's very heavy, or you can use it to shut down groups of enemies. Next, we'll talk about the Thunder Crash. I think it's Code of the Missile. Code of the Missile is very unique. You must use Catapult Lift with this one to get its best advantage because your punch now becomes a mini super. So you just aim. But unlike the other trees, getting a melee kill with this one is very, very difficult, especially if you're using an Insurmountable Skull Fort. It does very little damage, and it has a long time to actually get back up. It's not a little damage, let's be honest, it's like about 100 damage. So it's not a one-hit kill, and it's hard to get a one-hit kill unless you find someone that's already been weakened. But it does have a nifty little feature in it. Some things that many Titans that I know don't know is that you can use your mini crash before triggering your super crash, and it saves your mini crash. So for example, we'll do our mini and then trigger super. And you can fly this out for a pretty good amount of time. And I still have that, so I could still jump up and maybe clean up another guy over there. So this is an advantage of using Thunder Crash. Next, we'll talk about the bottom tree, which is the Juggernaut. This one is specifically for cleaning up lots and lots of people. If you're getting kills with this one, it extends the length. It does not have the big AoE pulse grenade that comes after it, but every time you get a kill with this, it lasts longer. So you will often see people just yeeting across the map with this. This is very, very fun to do. Does not synergize as much with Insurmountable Skull Fort. You'll actually want to pair this with things like Doom Marchers. Next, we will talk about the Solar subclass. The Solar subclass actually has a lot of fun that goes along with it. The grenades that are generally recommended are maybe using an Ashen Wake Arms with Fusion Grenade, Thermite Grenade, or Incendiary Grenade. I tend to like Thermite because you can pair it with exotics such as Innermost Light, and if you pop a barricade, then throw this, it makes it a one-hit kill. Same with the Fusion. And we'll show you what its super looks like. A lot of people will dub these the Explodey Hammers, so they will hit their target and then they'll explode. A direct hit with the big hammer is an instant kill, and it does a significant amount of damage if they get one of the explode pieces. It's kind of like throwing grenades, or enhanced grenades, I should say. Next we will talk about bottom tree hammers, or sunspot hammers. This is one through the code of the Siegebreaker. And when you pop, it actually gives you a well right where you're at. So you'll pay attention to things like Sun Warrior. When you throw out to another one, you can go stand in that one, and Sun Warrior actually gives you extended super time. In PvP, people run through these, they're pretty much done. So you can chain these together as you're out doing your kills and just kind of going through. Let me show you how quickly it recharges things. So we'll pop these around a little bit. You notice that the super's lasting a pretty lengthy amount of time. So if we throw our grenade and we stand in this well, we're at 10 times grenade, but you can see that that is pretty dang quick. So standing in these is very, very helpful, but unfortunately has to keep you in a static position. But with this tree, anytime you get a kill with either your melee ability or grenade, that well will spawn for you. Anytime you pop your super and throw a hammer, that well will spawn for you. So it's just an extra piece that you pay attention to. Finally, with the solar subclass, we'll talk about the Code of the Devastator. So if you were a Titan, so if you were a hunter and you're coming over to being a Titan, you may really enjoy Code of the Devastator. Reason is, you get a throwing hammer, and better yet, anytime you go pick it up and it hits someone, your life comes back. So it's pretty nice to have something with amazing tracking that you can go pick up over and over and over again. And if you were a hunter coming over to being a Titan, and you may have ran into this bad boy, that you cannot jump over the top of this boy. If you're a warlock, you might have been able to get over it, but I'm sorry, hunters. Jumping over this volcano, inferno, tornado, tornado inferno, one might say, me specifically, it was incredibly difficult, and the tracking on it is amazing. It will track around corners, and it will just seek out anyone. Also, you have the light attack, which is just swinging crazy. So I will talk about one thing that's very helpful with this as far as movement. If you're someone like me who really likes to use the strafe jump, especially with the solar subclass, it can be difficult to really gain on people, but remember, this will change your direction only one time through your jump. So use it to your advantage. It's very good at changing your direction, or if you're falling off and you're like, oh crap, you're back up. So it's very nice for that, but ultimately you're going to be doing heavy slams almost all the time, unless you were to come into a room and go, oh crap, there was a guy there that I didn't see to the left. All right, let's finish him off. The downside with it is literally any downslope will stop your animation. Any of them. I don't know if you noticed that, but yes, this little tiny lip changed everything. So finally, we'll talk about the Sentinel subclass. The Sentinel subclass, I actually have a build I'll share with you guys as well, is using the Doomfang Pauldrons. Doomfang Pauldrons are probably one of your better setups for Void. Whether you choose to go top tree, middle tree, or bottom, Doomfangs are really good. Although Helm of Saint 14 is generally paired with this because you get extra orbs when you pop your bubble, which we'll talk about really quick before we get into the gameplay of the other one. So this is your super with Ward of Dawn, but if you're top tree, you can also stay as the Sentinel Shield, which is really powerful. But the advantage of this one as well is when you're out of super, let's throw a couple of these away, is your punch will actually give you a overshield and all of your life back if you get a kill with it. So it's very, very helpful if you have someone shot down a little bit and then punch. Very helpful with pairing with like a shotgun. Very often, if a shotgun doesn't get its kill, a follow-up melee generally finishes people off. Next, we'll talk about the code of the commander. This one's really fun to play with, especially within PvE, but as of late, within PvP, it's seen a big uptick because of the banner shield. If you throw a grenade at someone and it explodes, every enemy that it touches gets hit with this void detonator on them. And if they die from void damage, say this void sword, they then explode and create new detonators to anyone nearby them. So this can chain very well in groups, so usually PvE is its best option, but also in PvP that can happen as well, especially if you're in capture the flag events. And the big thing for this subclass is its banner shield. That's holding L2 on controller, and it may be different for you on console with Xbox or PC, but anything this shield touches then gets hit with this debuff that's very similar to a suppression grenade. They're not able to jump, they're not able to use abilities, and they just take essentially void burn while they're in the shield. And anyone that shoots through your shield is doing more damage, and you're taking far less. However, it's not invulnerable, so let's not get crazy. But we'll get into the last piece for the Titan's Sentinel for Code of the Aggressor, which is by far my favorite because of the extra shields and the constant shield bash, and just it synergizes really well with our Monte Carlo that we talked about previously. So with this one, you actually get 2 shields to throw. And because we have fast supers, it just is spawning really quickly, but every time you get a hit with that, it's increasing your super ability, helping you stay in your super longer. But we'll talk about one little tip when it comes to the Sentinel Titan. One is, when you're in the air, you have a different cadence than when you are on the ground. When you're in the air, if you swipe once and twice, you get the big push. On the ground, you get a free chain. Why that's important is that that shield push is enough to almost kill every super out there. Oh, well, there's a good show of the suppression grenade working against a super. Yes, it can work on yourself. Notice that we can't do anything. Okay, so when you're doing that shoulder push, you're incapable of throwing a shield. You have to wait. So often you'll use that and then a shield, or 2 swipes and a shield. Get used to that, because even if the person's right in front of you, that shield can knock out almost any PvP character and most PvE people as well. Additionally, is when it makes a connection, it will then track to the next closest target. So it's very helpful in organizing your throws. Also, doing a shield that way and then hitting the guy, say that guy is right behind me, that's what I'll have to do to get a kill on him. But I might go this way, throw that, and then shield bash back. It's up to you, but vary it, get used to it. It's going to be your favorite subclass, I promise you, unless you just really enjoy punching faces. So, Captain America and then Captain Shoulder Charge. These are the 2 subs that I definitely recommend. So here's a little bit of gameplay footage of how this works in PvP. Enjoy.
You're pulling ahead. Two down.
Thank you for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you hopping in and taking a chance to look at all these Titan tips and tricks. If you like what you saw, please leave us a like. If there's something that you enjoy and you want to see more different types of Destiny 2 content or other game content, please leave me a comment below. and hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to flick the bell. That way you're alerted of all of our content as we go forward. As always, your viewership is good enough for me, and thanks for coming. I'll talk to you Guardians tomorrow.